This recording is one of a series intended to support you when writing your assignments for the Associate Diploma in People Management. This recording focuses on 5 HR02, Talent Management and Workforce Planning. Assessments are revised on a regular basis, and this guidance is based on the June 2024 version. The last moderation window for this assessment is September 2026. This assessment contains 10 questions that assess 10 assessment criteria, also referred to as ACs. The overall word count for the assessment for this unit is 3,900 plus or minus 10%. To ensure full coverage of all ACs, this means approximately 390 words can be allocated to the answer for each AC. The extra 10% allows up to around 429 words per AC. This assessment is based on a scenario. When answering the assessment questions, you should answer each question within the context of the scenario provided. The scenario tells us that Parcel Care is a long-established national parcel and package delivery service. Parcel Care is now finding it difficult to attract, recruit and retain staff throughout the organisation. You have just started in your new role of People Manager and have been asked to report to senior leaders on how these issues can be addressed. In preparation, you write answers to the 10 questions in the assessment brief. We will now move to the first question of the assessment. New entrants to the parcel delivery market and other labour market competitors have adversely affected Parcel Care's ability to compete in labour markets. You need to explain how Parcel Care can strategically position themselves in competitive labour markets. To answer this question, you can consider a number of ways in which Parcel Care can position themselves in these competitive labour markets. The indicative content for the assessment criteria that's published in the unit specification gives good ideas on areas for inclusion within this answer. For example, you could write about competitor analysis, looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the competitor's employee experience to then consider organisational positioning. Question 2 asks you to explain the impact of changing labour market conditions on resourcing decisions at Parcel Care. When answering this question, you could show knowledge that different decisions could be taken in tight labour markets compared to those taken in loose labour market conditions. Question 3 states, you are aware that workforce planning has not been carried out in the past and decide to persuade the senior leadership team that this activity is worth doing. You're then asked to analyse the impact of effective workforce planning, making clear how Parcel Care could benefit from this activity. Before you can analyse the impact, you should check your knowledge of what workforce planning is. When analysing the impact of effective workforce planning, you need to tailor your answer so that the impact on Parcel Care is clear. Question 4 is linked to question 3. To strengthen your argument to introduce workforce planning, you're asked to evaluate techniques that can be used to support the process of workforce planning. You should start by deciding which techniques you will write about. It is not enough to describe or explain the techniques. To meet the AC, you need to evaluate the techniques. When evaluating, you should make an appraisal of the value or not of your chosen techniques. You should consider how valid, reliable and applicable the techniques are. Question 5 tells you, currently, vacancies are advertised on Parcelcare's website. Line managers then interview shortlisted applicants. You feel that these are suitable recruitment and selection methods to use, but want to broaden the methods used. You're asked to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of 2 different recruitment methods and 2 different selection methods. This means that you cannot choose Parcelcare's own website when evaluating recruitment methods or interviews when evaluating selection methods. It is important to be clear about the difference between the terms recruitment and selection so that appropriate choices can be made. For example, you shouldn't evaluate 1 recruitment method and 3 selection methods. In question 6, you are told that on examining employee turnover rates, you feel the rate is higher than it should be and higher than internal targets. To understand this further, you're asked to discuss differences between avoidable and unavoidable turnover and differences between push and pull factors. This question has 2 parts to it, and both must be addressed. First, you need to show that you understand the differences between avoidable and unavoidable turnover. Second, you should discuss differences between push and pull factors that drive avoidable turnover. You could illustrate your answer with examples that could be relevant to Parcelcare. Question 7 tells us that retention of warehouse staff is an issue, as there are many labour market competitors. You are asked to compare the following retention methods: realistic job previews, induction, job enrichment, and reward. When comparing, you could consider how effective each method is at retaining new starters compared to longer-serving employees. You could also compare costs and the resources that are needed to implement the particular retention approaches. Question 8 provides you with a little bit more information again. To influence the senior leadership team to accept that employee turnover should be addressed, you're asked to explain the impact of dysfunctional employee turnover. The focus of this question is on dysfunctional employee turnover rather than functional employee turnover. When explaining the impact could be considered in terms of direct costs and indirect costs. Question 9 tells us that Parcelcare employs the majority of employees on permanent, full-time contracts. You feel these contracts have their place, but it is time to consider whether other types of contractual arrangements could be beneficial to the organisation, especially when demand for delivery services increases and decreases. And you need to assess the suitability of permanent full-time contracts for delivery drivers, as well as 2 other types of contract. When answering this question, you should focus on assessing the suitability of different contractual arrangements for delivery drivers rather than other types of employee. You should consider the information provided to you in the question, that demand for delivery services changes. Therefore, you can assess whether a different type of contract might better support this pattern. Finally, question 10. At present, an ad hoc approach is taken to onboarding and typically involves the line manager ensuring new starter forms are completed and health and safety training provided. You identify that onboarding can be improved, but first need to convince others that investment in this area is worthwhile. You are asked to explain the benefits of effective onboarding. This is a straightforward question, but it's not enough to identify some benefits. They must be explained. You can do this by giving reasons for the benefits. Before we close, I would like to emphasise the need to apply wider reading to inform each answer and include citations to reliable sources to show evidence of this reading. All sources should be listed in full in the bibliography using a recognised form of referencing. Citations should also be included within the body of your answers that link to the bibliography. We have now reached the end of the webinar for 5HR02. Other webinars are available for other units of the Associate Diploma in People Management. Thank you for listening.